Audrey. I don't know what was wrong with adopting Jenna, but we've got Jenna MacFarlane now in North Carolina to speak to us. Very lovely to see you, Jenna. Now that I've seen you, I would have adopted you myself, for goodness sake.
Oh, thank you. It's very nice to be here. Eamonn and Isabel, thank you for having me.
Well, there's lots of people obviously would have you. Who did have you in the end? Who did, when you said at the age of 43, look, will somebody just take me into their home? Who was the couple that eventually did it?
Well, it's a couple, Steve and Karen Kessler, and they also lived close by in North Carolina. They wrote to me along with about 100 others, and their letter really spoke to me. So I reached out to them and we started getting together. I don't think you could call it dating so much as it was get-togethers and getting to know each other. And just over time, I mean, that's nearly 20 years ago. And the relationship has grown and deepened since then. And I'm pleased to say that I'm part of their family and we're close.
How does that feel like?
Well, growing up in a family where love was difficult, I needed to learn something new. So trust was initially in short supply, and over time I was able to trust them. And they were pretty much my rock. They were reliable. I knew they weren't going to abandon me, much as my biological family. Yes, they had abandoned me when I was 33, so I waited 10 years before I placed the ad. And they did their best, my biological family, but they struggled. We just weren't close. So Steve and Karen were very different. It was a family experience. They didn't always agree. We're politically polar opposites, and they'd be the first to admit that. But I do seek their opinion when I want to broaden my own. And so I feel like I belong.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, look, lots of children and their parents have different political views, and gosh, the world's so polarised, it's almost impossible to find anyone with the same views these days, isn't it? But people might be watching, listening to this and thinking, at 43, why did you feel the need to have parents? And I don't mean that in an unkind way, but, I suppose a lot of 43-year-olds might have lost their parents through death or whatever it might be and just carry on, forge their way through life with their own, perhaps, children and husband. What did you feel you were missing?
Right. That's a question that comes up a lot, is why was I unable to connect with friends and build that family feeling? And for me, something was always missing. So I decided that I wanted to mature in a way that I had not. The trust as I mentioned, the trust was missing. So I wanted to foster that within myself. And I guess I have to leap back in time and grow myself up. And the Kesslers certainly provided that experience. I did mature through that experience. I did not know what to expect, and I didn't know what I needed. I leapt into the grand unknown, but I knew that something was missing, something big that was keeping me from developing in life. And they offered that experience unknowingly. None of us knew what we were getting into. And it has turned out to be, I don't know about them, but I can say very beneficial for me.
Jenna, is this something that you would see growing, that you would see catching on, that you could recommend to other people? We're all looking and saying, this is amazing, this woman did this. Could you see this becoming a thing?
Let's see. Well, I can speak for myself on that, and that I didn't know what I was getting into. And it was not easy for me personally because I had to change. I needed to mature. And I also needed to be certain that my parents weren't coming back. And I know that sounds a bit harsh. It's not a criticism of them. But many estrangements, I believe, can be worked out. They are misunderstandings that need to be spoken through and to get a perspective of the other side. For me, I had been threatened with disownment since I was a young girl. My mother struggled in certain areas of her life, and parenting might have been one of them. She just really did her best, and I love my parents, but I knew they weren't going to come back. So that freed me up to think out of the box a bit, as it were.
Yeah. Well, listen, brilliant. We look forward to seeing the film, Adopting Audrey, though I would have kept it at Jenna, which is a much nicer name.